Monday, February 24th. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. But are you aware of any adjustments that need to be made to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
That's Rick's motion, seconded by Tracy, to approve the agenda that we have. Anyone have questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All right, that clearly passes. Minutes from our previous meeting are in board docs as usual.
I'll move to approve the minutes for the regular meeting held on February 10th, 2025 as presented.
Second. Jennifer's motion is seconded by Ed to approve our previous meeting minutes. Questions from anyone? And then all in favor of approval there, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And vouchers are letter E.
I'll move to approve general checking account vouchers totaling $845,505.09 as presented.
Second.
John's motion, seconded by Rick, is to approve our checking account vouchers in the amount that he just enumerated. Questions from anyone on the vouchers? And then all in favor of approval of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That clearly passes. Student Council, we're glad that we can have our Milton High School Redhawks join us, and we're going to get a little update on what's been happening at 114 West High Street.
Okay, so we had Winter Week, which we had 2 PEP assemblies. We had one on Tuesday, we had one on Thursday. The one on Tuesday, we decided to highlight our clubs, including FBLA, Fishing Club, Art Club. And speaking of FBLA, we had 7 state qualifiers: Max Olson, Natalie Kirsten, Brooklyn Wagner, Emma Steinke, Madeline Lessinger, Ben Lewis, and Brady Dorsey. And as well as this, our show choirs performed, which really highlighted that. And then on Thursday, we highlighted our Special Olympic athletes while they played games. And as well as our assembly on Thursday. On Tuesday, we also did interactive games with a lot of the student body. And then we had our spirit days. And it was just a really fun week for everybody, even though it was cut short. And then recently, over this past weekend, solo and ensemble took place at Craig High School. Many band and choir students participated in that, and they got individual rankings, and many of them went to state. And then this past week, we had FFA week. We had Kiss a Kid on Wednesday, which was Mr. Heilman and Mr. Keene kissing a baby goat. And then we also had Spirit Days. We had ice cream on Thursday, and then there was a cornhole game to raise money for FFA. And then we had the Betty Purdue Badminton Tournament, and then our sports are doing well, and then this weekend, show choir has its last competition.
Do you have any time to go to class? Thank you. That was amazing. Love to hear it. All right, public comment is next, and while we did not have anyone sign the sheet to address us in person, I do have an email that has been asked to be read, and while I try to encourage folks to share their thoughts with us in person, this is a unique circumstance in that the respondent here is James Haas, who is a parent in the Milton School District. Mr. Haas also serves as the technology director for the School District of Edgerton. And as such, they have a meeting tonight that he's presenting at, and he wanted to share a letter with us relative to our agenda, or potential agenda here. So at any rate, dear Milton School Board, let me first start by expressing my support and gratitude for our staff, administration, and technology department for their thorough work on the recent Chromebook pilot program. The plan I felt was a solid plan that supported student learning and could or should have been replicated from 9 to 12 to the lower grades. To see its failure at the last meeting was a major disappointment in this Board of Education. Today, I want to express my frustration with the school board considering another renewal of Apple products for student use. While I understand the intention of providing students with modern technology, I am concerned that the choice of Apple devices does not set them up for success beyond their time in the Milton School District. iPads lack keyboards and full-featured software that Chromebooks or other solutions would provide. Apple's ecosystem does not align with the broader technology landscape that students will encounter in higher education and the workforce. Additionally, I would like to formally request a copy of the privacy agreement between Milton School District and Apple. I want to ensure that my students' data is protected while using their district-issued iPad and the MacBook Air that they will receive next year. Given the increasing concerns around student data security, transparency in this matter is critical. Excuse me. This request is following comments made during discussion of this board as a reason to vote down the Chromebooks, and assume that this board has researched this prior to voting on renewal of the Apple products. I appreciate your time and look forward to your response regarding both the district's technology strategy and the privacy protections in place for students using Apple devices. Thank you, James Hobbs. And that is the only comment that was shared that we needed, or that was needed to be shared at public comment. And an email from Annette. Do we have her name carried, or are we waiting to do that?
I'm online.
Okay, thank you. I was hopeful.
Yeah. Thanks.
Excellent, okay. So that is the end of the public comment. We will move to superintendent update. Rich, admin update,
Yeah.
Red Hook
The
highlights.
second board meeting of the month, we have our administrators come to the podium and share highlights of things that are happening at each of their schools. It looks like Sarah's first.
Good evening. At the elementary level, we are working hard to plan for conferences, and those are great opportunities, especially that second conference of the year where we're really into the long stretch where we are really starting to do a little bit less review than at the beginning of the year, when we're really identifying areas that students can work on to grow as well as celebrate their strengths. So working hard, all of our teachers, just shout out to them as they're working hard to get ready for that. Also, we're putting plans into place. So we've been reporting to you monthly about Act 20 and our reading plans that our students, all the testing we've done. And now at PLCs today, I chatted with teachers who were talking about how to use we call it WIN time, what I need time, to make sure that those reading plans are going into place. So it's good to see those things happening. On a couple of other fronts, I just want to mention a shout out to Mike Gosdek and the District Wellness Committee. We had over 100 run walks, and then not counting all of their parents and grandparents who came to the pool for a free family swim. And hundreds of items were donated that were healthy snacks that were distributed to all of the elementary schools to provide to students who forget a snack. So that was all afternoon on Saturday, and it was awesome. So the community really appreciated the opportunity to get in and see the Leader Family Pool. So for some people, it was their first time, and they were very, very impressed. And our Milton High School lifeguards did a great job, and they were very just fun with the children too. So that was great to see. And finally, in the summer school front, this week we will be working, Sarah Olson, who is our assistant to summer school, and I will be working with Carrie Kleva to get some new things on our website. So we're getting close to knowing exactly which classes we're going to offer to families, and that enrollment window will open in March. And so it's been a busy planning time, and we're excited to get the kids excited about summer school when we share with them some of the new classes we're going to offer.
Thanks. So at the high school and in the student council report, lists a lot of things. It's been a busy time up there, but we did have at Soul Ensemble, there were over 50 events that the Manchester's performed in, which is a high in recent years. And actually 24 individual students qualified for the state competition, which is also a recent high. We're very proud of the program there. Also, I want to mention state wrestling. We had sectional competitions this past weekend, qualifying for individual states meet as Aiden Slama, Devin Babzine, Gage Gross, and the girls, Devin Albright, Dylan Albright, Jesse DiMarcima, and Maddie Peach. So very proud of all of the winter sports, but the wrestlers obviously have a really, really great weekend. And other things at the high school, we are almost done with arena scheduling. So the current freshmen signed up for build schedules today. That continues to be a process that's refined, but also we're getting a lot of positive feedback again on the arena scheduling, and as we begin to build the schedule for next year. Students are excited. We had over 240 of the current freshmen signed up for classes just the very first day. And the second process will be And many of them had it done by 7 a.m. So they want to get it and get their schedules done. Also, we are preparing for the ACT on March 11th across the state of Wisconsin. All juniors will be taking the ACT. That happens to be on March 11th. And so preparations this last week, on top of, what's been going on in classes the last 3 years, we also had, during our study flex time, all juniors received test prep on tips and tricks and understanding the test. We have had more and more students that are taking a practice test the last 2 months, and we're very hopeful that that's going to help us in the preparation as well. I also do want to just mention at the last professional development day, Milton High School staff spent the full day working on essential outcomes for their classes. This is in preparation for, it's been our big goal this year, and I'm very proud. We actually went through each of the different PLCs, and they worked on creating what those essential standards that the courses are based off of. It's been a good review, very proud of a lot of heavy lifting the staff has been doing this year, and they responded to that. And then I am also now going to the middle school. Ben is not able to make it, and Tara is ill tonight, so I have Tara Zerwinski's report. So at the Milton Middle School. Middle school Unity team spent the winter fundraising for the Polar Plunge, raising an incredible $4,350 to support Special Olympics Wisconsin athletes. Ms. Brand and 12 Milton Middle School students took the plunge on February 15th. I saw the pictures, it looked cool. All right. They had a very successful I Love Avid Week, or I Heart Avid Week, which was filled with career readiness activities and advisory. And then they wanted to announce the musical production of Frozen Junior this weekend at the Milton High School Performing Arts Center, with regular shows on Friday night, this coming Friday at 7 p.m., and Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m., and a special sensory-friendly show on Saturday at 2 p.m. So come catch Frozen Junior at 7th High School.
All right, good evening. At Northside Intermediate School, not sure if you know this or not, but we've been busy collecting cereal boxes. And today was, I've heard about it too. But today was our culminating event. And so a couple shout outs. Thank you, Carrie Kleva, for coming to videotape the dominoes of those cereal boxes. Thank you to Kate Nelson, our student council leader, as well as the Northside Student Council. And then, of course, Maggie Tukendorf for kind of spearheading this project, not kind of, she did, Do Good Wisconsin. It was, the goal coming into this year was to do better than last year, and they doubled it. So we had 3,530 cereal boxes to set up, take down, and now deliver. So pretty exciting. They were excited, and it wasn't just a Northside Intermediate School event, but it was a community event. We had a lot of businesses stop in and drop off cereal boxes, donate money to then go buy. So pretty cool thing for our whole community. Second thing is last Tuesday night, we had a parents group meeting. We've been working real hard on looking at ways we can add to the Northside Intermediate School playground to freshen up our 1993 playground equipment. And we finally moved forward to adding some equipment on the north side of our building. So stay tuned this spring. I'll be working with Stephen Schatz, and we'll be getting that done.
And there are two things that I want to highlight, maybe three things, because I also want to thank Roxy the Red Hawk for showing up at Northside today for the cereal domino. That was fun. And another Northside related event, I was able to meet last week with the Northside Student Council, and at Northside Middle School and the high school, I at times get invited to meet with the student councils to talk about things that are happening at their schools, things that are happening across the district. It was a great visit with the Northside Student Council group. We talked about important leadership skills and being involved in a lot of activities. And it was a great conversation. And then the last thing that I had is, as you all know, Julia Garshinsky is leaving us at the end of the year. We've had that position posted, and today was the last day that was posted. We have a really strong applicant pool that we feel great about. We're going to be holding interviews this coming Friday for 6 candidates. So we're hoping that we're hoping at the next board meeting that we're able to bring a recommendation for a candidate.
Go
I
ahead.
have a few questions. Jeremy, can I ask you a few questions? What are the state competitions for the two items you highlighted, you said ensemble and wrestling? Do you know?
Yeah, the wrestling is going to be, it starts, what is it now? The first ones are Thursday night, goes Friday and Saturday,
So it's this
Yeah.
coming weekend?
this coming weekend.
Okay,
The state solo ensemble, I do not have the dates. There's 2 dates, one in April, one in May. There's 2 different locations involved in the state, and I don't have that.
no, it's not like this weekend or anything like that?
No,
Okay.
wrestling is this weekend.
Yeah, thank you. The other question I had, for the performance for the middle school, it's at the high school?
Yes,
Are the tickets available at the door for those that want to attend? Do you know?
I do not know.
I think that they
I
are.
would guess
They have
they are
been
available
used.
at the door. Yes, they're
Okay.
not sold out, so I'm sure you can.
Fair enough. And my last one, more of a comment. Thank you to the staff at the high school. The arena scheduling that you mentioned, however they trained the students, it's very easy for my student at least to be able to navigate and be done by 6:10. So, I know they prepped a lot for that. So kudos to whoever was prepping the students because they seemed really prepared to get that done and dusted and on. Thank you.
All right, that up, Rich?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert and sort of a stay tuned message. Rich and I are working on a little bit of a program whereby during Red Hawk Highlights, we're going to try and shine a spotlight on some well-deserved folks in our district and try to make that a regular feature moving forward. So stay tuned. We'll launch that here very shortly. So, all right, we'll move on. Next is committee reports. And like last meeting, we had every committee almost had met and gave you a big report. This meeting we have one, albeit the longest agenda we've had in a bit of a time. So Finance Committee met last week and John is going to share with you what we did.
It was not a 4-hour meeting, so. The Finance Committee had a meeting on Monday, February 17th. It was quite the agenda with 7 items, as Joe mentioned. These 7 are also on tonight's agenda. About half of the items were informational, and the other half are action items for tonight. I will share a few key takeaways before the likely team of people will go through the items. Fund 46 is a fund that was created just about 5 years ago. We now have access to utilize those dollars for capital maintenance projects. Part of those projects will potentially include the Performing Arts Center. The majority of the PAC and the components are original back to 1998. Steve? Okay. And have outlived their life expectancy. Next up, Stephen will share his annual maintenance and improvement plan. This has historically been a 5-year plan, but he has now moved that to a 10-year plan. This too is a possible action item for tonight. Ross will share some quarterly financial data in the 25-26 budget calendar. Item E is a discussion and possible action item as well. It is in regards to Fund 73, which is our account for OPEB benefits. This trust was originally established in 2006. There are currently investment vehicles that comprise the total of that current investment. Tonight, Ross will share a change to one of the investment components, a possible change. And lastly, item G is a petition to alter school district boundary lines. The district has received a petition from a property owner on North Shrine Road. This road runs north and south on the most easterly district line. The district boundary line runs just to the west of Shrine Road behind the property in question. This petition must be approved or denied by both Milton and Whitewater Unified School District by March 1st. If either district denies, the property would stay with the Whitewater Unified School District. Therefore, this is an action item for tonight as well. It's the recap.
Now we'll back up.
Back it up.
I guess if you want to start with A, Ross is going to talk to us a little about our Fund 46.
Yeah, just to recap a little bit beyond, recap what John mentioned, go a little bit further. Fund 46 is a long-term capital maintenance fund that districts like us can leverage to spread our shared costs over a longer period of time and avoid the roller coasters that might occur if we were to have large expenses one year and smaller expenses the next. This fund was established back on April 16th, 2020. And per state statute, we are able to access the initial deposit or any fund of dollars in that fund for a period of 5 years. That 5 years, surprisingly, has come due. It is first available to us in April 17th of 2025. And just as a quick heads up, when we talked at the annual meeting last year, we reported the balances at year end. As of June 30th, 2024, the balance in Fund 46 is $4,089,230. So thank you again for, prior to me establishing this fund, as it gives us some leverage and ability to address some of the longer and higher ticket items in our capital maintenance needs. Before we move on, I just want to highlight that we're going to talk through our annual long-term maintenance plan with Stephen Shantz, as John said, but that I do want to mention one thing that's not going to be added on the plan as it was approved last year. In the fall of 23, we talked about a number of one-time capital maintenance projects. One of those was the north side chiller replacement, which system goes back to the early 90s when the building was constructed. That funding was deposited into Fund 46 at the end of last fiscal year. As such, it is going to be one of the first draws this April based on that prior approval. And once we get closer to spring break, Stephen's going to get the crew in here and start that project in spades. So next up, I'll turn things over to Stephen. We're going to talk through a little bit of research. Yes.
Sorry, I do have a question.
Yes.
So it says the current balance is $4,089,000. Was that the initial deposit or is that the growth?
That's the cumulative over the last 5 years.
And it's not dollar per 5 years, so you can put money in this year and use it next year?
Correct.
So you don't wait 5 years for the deposit, it was just the setup?
Just the initial deposit.
Thank you.
And any expense tied to Fund 46 must be identified in the long-term capital maintenance plan. And as we go through the plan tonight, one of the things we're going to highlight each year, starting with this year, is which of those projects we'd like to tackle with Fund 46 and which would be through the regular capital maintenance budget that we've been doing for the last several years.
And you have to report on that on an annual basis?
Of course.
Thank you.
Great. Stephen?
Thank you, Ross. All right. Item B on the Finance Committee agenda was just a real high-level report on the status of the district's Performing Arts Center. We constructed the Performing Arts Center back in 98, 99. And at that time, and even up to recent days, as Joe mentioned in the meeting, it was the new PAC. 25 years old now, it was important for us to get an updated assessment and evaluation of the status of the PAC. The PAC has a lot of unique items in that space, from the sound system, the lighting, the rigging, the curtains, the seating, all that good stuff. Just to have a complete evaluation of that space, really to give us a status update of where all those critical systems sit today. And one of the most critical things that was identified right away was, the biggest thing for us was to get the safety and the safety items addressed, like the rigging and the curtains and things. And that was the first thing that we tackled. That assessment was done in the springtime, and we had, I was going to say, I was looking at my shirt there, but we had those items addressed in the spring. Second item that we took a look at addressing, being the second highest need, was the sound system. The sound system is what you're going to see in the capital maintenance plan for 2025-26. It's one of the first projects out of Fund 46. And then future projects that were identified, continuing to move up down this priority list, would be lighting, aesthetic upgrades, just to kind of keep the pulse, keep the needle moving on upgrading what is now a 25-plus-year-old Performing Arts Center. So it's really nothing that we've talked about in great detail at previous meetings or even on previous capital maintenance plans, because it really kind of fell into a gray area. It was just kind of supported by a small budget at the high school just to replace microphones that went bad here and there, and taking on other projects along the way when we had funding available, like replacing a projector and small things like that. But all those items are captured now on the capital maintenance and improvement plan, and will be under further development in years to come. So that was high school PAC items we talked about.
I have a question. So last board meeting, we had a $44,000 expense related to the rigging that you mentioned.
Yes.
So the reason that went through operational was because you had not put it onto the plan? And is there no way to claw back to put that through capital?
No, not at this point.
Are there any other PAC expenses, large expenses like that have gone through operational?
Not recently.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on PAC related items? As we can hop into my favorite presentation of the year. I don't know about you guys. Capital maintenance and improvement plan. Now, a 10-year capital maintenance and improvement plan. We do a little bit of a deeper dive at the finance committee level, but cruise through a little bit shortened version. I do want to highlight one of the reasons why we come to the board in late February or early March for this is to lock in pricing and set up contracts with these vendors at early enough time that we can get these projects done and get materials procured in a limited, extremely limited window of time that we have in the summer to complete these. Whether that's at buildings that have summer school or not summer school, we obviously have to have everything all wrapped up by the time school starts. So the earlier we can get a jump on, potentially other districts, other competitors in these scheduling, crazy scheduling world that we have, the better. First thing we like to recall here on the capital maintenance plan is some of the
This is
PowerPoint.
slides.
First thing I'd like to cruise through is the previous 5 years of investments that previous boards have made in the capital maintenance and improvement plan. Over the last 5 years, a minimum budget through Fund 10 has been $700,000. And on top of that, we have done other projects along the way. On top of that $700,000, but we did capture both projects that were approved via capital maintenance and improvement plan and others. And we also have had a pretty good established baseline of at least $80,000 or above to support our district parks. And then in 22, 23, 23, 24, relatively steady at those amounts. And last fiscal year, the current fiscal year, 24, 25, we had a really large year for capital projects outside of a capital referendum with the grandstands that were replaced. And then we had some very exciting donor-funded projects like the baseball field improvements and the high school stadium scoreboard and sound system. And as Ross mentioned, we have the north side cooling system replacement approved through Fund 46 that's scheduled to take place here this spring. Then the proposed projects that we have for 25-26 at East, we're going to be looking to replace updated controls on our unit ventilators. This project is of high importance for us because the controls that are on right now are obsolete, over 20 years old. So we got to get those back up to speed. And then the photo there on the right is of a boiler original to Milton East from 1957 that we'd be looking to replace with a modern high efficiency condensing boiler. Obviously, far past its useful life, much more efficient boiler would be slated to take its place. At West, we would look at replacing some toilet partitions in the front restrooms. Those are currently hollow metal. Hollow metal is a short lifespan material, very easy to rust, as you can see in the photos. And also replacing the exterior doors 10, 11, and 12, which is the gym and cafeteria. Again, hollow metal doors, really subject to rust with salt and winter conditions. Also at West, looking at the sister school to East here, looking to replace the original boiler from 1959 with a high efficiency condensing boiler, and that's obviously the one on the left there, in the lime green. Also at West, replace the flooring, repaint replace in the library, replace the flooring, repaint, and replace the circulation desk. That is from the addition to Milton West in 1989. All of that is still original to that construction. And next slide is just a rendering from our partners at PRA that are helping me with the floor pattern and paint design here, a much brighter, much more refreshed learning space for West. Consolidated, we have 2 remaining classrooms with VCT flooring in them. As you may or may not recall, we've done 2 classrooms a year for the last 3 years out there, so this will be the last of the classrooms to take care of. At Harmony, looking at replacing some toilet partitions in the front restrooms and in the back restrooms. These toilet partitions are pretty much the same shape as West, hollow metal partitions, over 20 years old, painted numerous times and really starting to show their age. And similar to east, we'd be looking at replacing and updating controls on our unit ventilators, same era as the controls we have at east. At north side, we're looking at continuing making our way through the district to repaint our gym and cafeteria and really our common spaces that are used highly by the general public as well. That gym and cafeteria are real same aesthetic and paint job from its original construction in 1993 as well. And we would also be looking at replacing interior door lock sets from its original construction in 1993. Those are faster useful life, and we're looking to make just a general security upgrade, allowing teachers or anybody using the facility to lock the doors from the inside should there be a need to do so. And next slide is just a rendering of what the gym is going to potentially look like. Again, a much more modern look for what all of our other gym spaces look like around the district. No projects at the height or at the middle school, unfortunately, this year. At high school, we would be looking at our large roof replacement project for this year would be roof section 5B and 6. Those are the roof sections shaded in red. We did section 5A last summer, which is that white part just to the south of that area in red. The other project at the high school would be replacing the PAC sound and microphone system. And those two projects we have highlighted and slated for potential funding through Fund 46. Finally, at our district parks, we would be looking at some fencing replacements and repairs at Schilberg Park, resealing and restriping the parking lot and walking path at Schilberg Park. And a good question that was asked at the Finance Committee about that also does include some targeted asphalt patches. And that is really going to extend the life of that asphalt, both for the parking lot and walking path for many years to come. And lastly, at the parks would be replacing picnic tables and benches at Schilberg and Central Parks. That's just a photo of kind of the condition of what all of the benches and picnic tables look like there. Those have exceeded their useful life too, and we are looking to upgrade those to more of a composite construction. It's much easier to move around, much cleaner for users as they use those, and it'll be a nice replacement. Then to the project total slide, all of our projects at the schools plus the district parks add up to $1,338,957. And it has the general Fund 10 amount of $700,000. Fund 46 proposed projects is just over $488,000, and in Fund 80, our district parks, $150,000 worth of projects. Thank you for your support as always. Is there any questions about the projects?
Steve, a quick question, maybe more of a comment for you or something to share. You had mentioned the focus on energy.
Yes.
Is that a grant, right? By doing some of these projects.
Yeah, focus energy incentive. Yeah. Specific to the boilers.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, I've had more back and forth dialogue with Focus on Energy as we dial in what that project specifically is, and the incentive per school is looking to be between about $20,000.
Yeah. So not just the energy efficiency savings there, but possibly the savings on it.
Yes, exactly. Great point.
Stephen, thanks for all the great info. Couple of questions. What's the status of the improvements at the high school baseball field?
So those improvements will be wrapping up here as soon as the weather allows us to finish the dugouts. The field lighting actually just got energized on Friday. This last Friday, we had some really, really long lead time items for some electrical head-end equipment, but happy to report that the lighting will be ready for day one. And then the dugouts should be wrapped up as soon as the weather allows us. And then we did have a little bit of funds available from the initial donation that are allowing us to also replace the batting cages and bullpen mounts along both sides there too. So the money that was kind of held back for some construction contingency was allowed us to make a couple additional nice improvements.
Great. At Schilberg, What fencing is gonna be replaced, like at all the ball diamonds or?
So it's really targeted fencing replacements and repairs. There's a lot of areas that have fencing that's just like sagging, a lot of fencing that is just in a state of disrepair. It just really added up to a whole bunch of little things that we kind of combined into a larger project. You know, there's gates in the fields that have just not worked for years. There's fencing in front of dugouts that we want to replace. There's just a lot of odds and ends.
Okay, all right, great, thank you.
I'll just throw a thank you out there, Stephen, for you and your team. It's a lot of work. There's a lot to juggle here.
Yeah, well, thank you, appreciate it.
Right.
You would recognize that.
Well, for everything you guys do, there's probably 5 things waiting in line. So
Definitely.
I appreciate the hard work and the way you present it. So it's logical.
Say thank you. I'm gonna make a motion to approve the 10-year capital maintenance and improvement plan.
Rick, one more thing, sorry.
Sorry.
I knew I was gonna forget the vehicle and equipment replacement plan, so I apologize. Off. And then last thing that we presented was the 5-year vehicle and equipment replacement plan. Every year we present a recommendation to the board for replacing some of our more expensive pieces of equipment, district vehicles, so on, cleaning equipment. And this year, our recommendation would be to replace some high-level cleaning equipment at north side of the middle school, a scrubber for west, garbage shampooer for north side, and 2 scrubbers for the middle school. And that total would be $55,000, and that budget line item, as you can see from year to year, is pretty consistent for what we typically target. So thank you again, Ross, for catching that. I knew I was going to.
David, I have a question.
Sure.
Looking at the 10-year plan, with all the work that we're doing with the baseball diamonds and the stadium, the grandstand we just put up, is there any plan, and I don't see it in the 10-year, to do anything with the restroom facilities at the high school?
Are you saying like the stadium restroom facilities and things? So the stadium is a little bit of a different animal that I can't really put on here at this particular time. The next step for that would be another, so as we've talked before, that's like a multi-phase approach, right? So we did the grandstands, which would probably be like typically phase 3, but we would kind of make that into the highest priority. So what we really need to do is kind of reprioritize and retake a look at what our needs are at the stadium. And then from there, we can develop some rough orders of magnitude for construction costs. Right now, we'd be kind of guessing at what we would even need at this stage of the game, but I would definitely foresee that being updated and added onto a 10-year plan in the future.
Okay.
I think it's an important point and a really good question, because we developed the 10-year plan based on what we identify as needs, but it's always an evolving plan every year. So what the board will be approving are the items that are on for 25-26, but then every year throughout the year, we look at our facilities, identify needs, move things either earlier in the plan or later in the plan, or add things or take things out depending on available resources and what those highest needs are.
So just because I don't see it here, doesn't mean it won't make its way in here at some point in time.
Absolutely.
No, thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, very good question.
Any other questions specifically around the vehicles? Otherwise, Rick's motion is probably appropriate now.
Okay, yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the 10-year capital maintenance and improvement plan, and a 5-year vehicle equipment replacement schedule, specifically the items, projects outlined for completion in the 2025-2026 column as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, Rick's motion is seconded by Tracy to approve the 10-year cap and maintenance and improvement plan that Stephen just walked through with us. Does anyone have questions? I see none. All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
That clearly passes.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Stephen. All right, we'll go down to D, and I believe that puts Ross back in the podium.
Again. All right, next up is a new report that we've been working on for the last several weeks. We have a quarterly report for the second quarter. My goal is to bring this to the board at the end of each quarter, once those month ends are closed. And the memo here outlines a lot of the particular information for the information therein. But I just want to preface this, that the reports you're seeing here are designed to be almost a replication of what we would be issuing at the annual meeting. The format you're seeing in the STAR reports attached is the same as the annual report the annual meeting, in that it summarizes all fund and source by roll-up. So your 100s inter-district transfers into a fund, your local sources 200s. Many of these are labeled on the report. On the expenditure side, it's by fund and function grouping. So your undifferentiated curriculum, regular curriculum, vocational, etc. Throughout the analysis in here, I go through the revenue and expenditure reports in more detail. The discussions with the finance committee the last 2 meetings has been helpful to kind of fine tune what this looks like and to kind of make it more readable to those who may not see this every day. But the good news is as of this report, the expenditures for the general fund are approximately 38% to budget. Doesn't sound like a lot at the end of December, but since we start school in September, we only have a handful of months to get the regular school year folks paid throughout the year. And by December, we have a good number of payroll expenses, but a lot of our year-end expenses will be coming up in this third quarter. We do have about 75% of our budget tied up in staffing costs, and you see as you go through the expenditure columns for the groupings under function, a lot of those percentages are going to be pretty similar. That's because most of those expenses are tied to direct staffing. Exceptions for that on the expenditure report are going to be under the areas of debt service. We're going to have to make our payments in July for the new year based on what lease payments we're making. And for our insurance programs, for our liability, property, and casualty, we can be able to pay most of those at the beginning of the fiscal year. Aside from that, if there's any questions, I can attempt to answer them here, or if you have any questions, I encourage the board to reach out to me and we can clarify that.
I see none.
All right.
Thank you, Ross.
Can't hear me yet.
Nope, not yet.
All right, next up, I want to talk through another discussion we've had the last 2 finance committees, and that's in regards to our OPEB strategy or other post-employment benefits. As John mentioned at the beginning, we started our Fund 73 or in recognition of our OPEB liability back in 2006. And in here, I highlight that as of last fiscal year end, we have a net fiscal position of about $4.8 million in our Fund 73 fund balance. This is a very strong standing from where we began, and our total OPEB liability for all outstanding retiree benefits right now stands at just over $6.3 million. So we are definitely on the way to having this fully funded. It remains to be seen how quickly we will get there. We have a couple investment vehicles in place today, one of which we want to talk about in more detail tonight. The memo we provided on the second page has a brief table outlining what our interest earnings have been for the 3 vehicles we've had in most recent years. For the Bank of Milton, we've had a fairly minimal amount of interest income coming from the funds we set up back in 2009. And for the most part, though, our depositories are through the Local Government Investment Pool, or LGIP, which is used by every school district in Wisconsin. That rate is somewhat more variable and fluctuates with the market, but still remains fairly consistent and has a rather healthy rate of return. In 2023, this board actually invited a Midwest Trust, at the time I believe it was still BMO through PMA, as our OPEB partner for investment. And as of last year, we have posted just over $136,000 in interest earnings through our investments through Midwest Trust. What you might have noticed on this chart, though, is that the money that is sitting with Bank of Milton is not gaining a lot of interest. So after our last finance committee, I got the direction to speak with Bank of Milton on what we could do about that. And one of the vehicles they proposed to us was to convert what is essentially an interest-bearing checking account with Bank of Milton to a 5-month CD vehicle at an initial rate of 3.75 interest. This does not tie up the money in our investments with Bank of Milton. In fact, they have assured us in the guarantees and the paperwork we have for tonight that if we need to withdraw this money for any reason, they can facilitate it. We would just need to work with the bank directly. We would not be able to transfer it on our accord, as it is technically a CD vehicle. Since it's a 5-month CD, the Bank of Milton will need to update us every 5 months on what may be changing with that rate. I do expect it to fluctuate, but in our current account, we're getting no more than 0.5%, and our initial rate here would be 3.75. So at this point, I'm requesting of the board to help us authorize moving this to a 5-month CD vehicle so that we can continue to address our OPEB liability through some additional interest earnings. Yes.
Are you able to communicate with the balances in the 3 different ones, percentage of the total?
I can give you, at my last look, yes. At the Bank of Milton, we have approximately $1.6 million.
Yep.
Through Midwest Trust, we have 2 accounts. One has 1.1 million, the other has 1.8. I apologize, I'm going a bit from memory.
That's
The
fine.
LGIP is a bit more fluid in that it has our operational money that goes in each payroll as we charge it through our accounts.
So so if we're gonna get 3.5%, so I say on 1.6 million versus, so, I mean, obviously I completely agree with getting it out of whatever that is, I mean, that's heads. But is it worth not putting it into Midwest with the better rates?
We discussed that. I think that at this time, it would be advantageous to keep our relationship with Bank of Milton and revisit that at a later date if rates start to change.
This is excellent.
This is a proposed action item.
I think to Tracy's point too, it was one of those things in 5 months, we could change a portion of it, all of it, keep it the same, and bring up some options. It was just kind of the first step of our.
And it also gives us the ability to work with PMA in that fund to make changes based on fluctuations in the market or what's changing in the 6, 12-month outlooks as well.
It just seems about half what we'd be earning in the other one, if the balances are about the same. Because when I look at the two, it's got about $136,000 from 23, 24, no, maybe interest rates were higher, so.
They were.
Fair enough.
I think the other thing too, those are variable accounts, so if the market's down, I mean, I don't think we lose any money per se, but it could be flat, right? I mean,
It could be flat. Midwest does have some risk associated with it, but that's one of the reasons we hired out PMA as an investment advisor to give us a clear warning if and when that outlook is not looking so good. But it is true that with Midwest, the last year we've had a good year. I cannot guarantee that type of return every year for sure. Just like any other investment vehicle, there's going to be fluctuations in actual performance.
With that, the size of deposit, right now it's just like set into our checking account. Has the finance committee or the admin looked at other banks in the area that might have a higher interest rate or a 5-month CD? Just out of curiosity.
Not for 5-month CD. We did talk about other vehicles that are currently in use, LGIP being the default, as we use that for all our day-to-day operations. Midwest being our chosen OPEB partner, we would want to at least entertain them as a first draw if we wanted to move to them. But at this time, through our discussions at finance, we did want to preserve the relationship with Bank of Milton for the immediate future.
And for those on the finance committee, did you have any other concerns with it? Whoever else is, I mean, did we investigate First Community, or other banks in Milton? I'm just curious as whether 3.75 is a fair rate for $1.6 million.
Well, I think Ross could speak to that, but, you know, over the years, we've used both banks in town equally for lots of our different partnerships, whether it was borrowing or investing or whatever we're doing. And, you know, they've been competitive every time we've used them, and we had somewhat of a strategy to use both. Both of those are very valued community members, community partners, and have shown up on our donor list innumerable times. So we want to preserve that relationship, or at least I would assume we would. So to the degree that somebody's 0.1% better, I guess we did not shop that, but.
Well, I'm just saying they want to keep our relationship, but over the course of 10 years, they earned half of what we earned in 1 year with Midwest.
Correct.
So again, it's playing fair on both sides, like making sure that they're also giving us, you know, the best opportunity at $70,000 over the course of 10 years.
And that was disclosed when I met with Bank of Milton as well, that they definitely have an interest to do better based on what's there. From what I can tell, this account was established back in 2009 through board action, which at the time we did shop our partners in the area. But that vehicle has not been revisited until now.
fair enough. And so, but the board is willing to, the finance committee that put on, like, be mindful with them, like, if we don't do better, like, again, keeping a relationship is one thing, but being taken advantage of is completely different. Which I look at this and it's pretty unsettling that it was 70,000 and we made both in LGIP and Midwest over $100,000 in both.
Again, for me, it goes back to the 5-month CD. That was the reason why I was comfortable with this, just because it wasn't a full year. It's 5 months. That gives us time for them to build that relationship or continue to build it and look at options if we need to.
And
a couple of years ago.
So I was gonna say, are Midwest and LGIP based on market performance, like they would be like a mutual fund, those kind of investments?
They have
Or
different withholdings, and through Midwest specifically, there's a number of investment portfolios that we can access. When we chose our portfolios back in 2023, we did identify 2 separate funds, one for our 403B catch-up after our retiree benefit changes, and our prevailing fund, or just everything else for our legacy retirement benefits. That's the one that's growing at a bit more of an aggressive rate, subject to a bit more fluctuation, but last year's performance you're seeing here is almost primarily in the 403B catch-up group.
I think one other thing to note is that a large portion of the LGIP interest earnings were in the last 2 years. About 160, a little bit over 160,000 of that 229 were in the last 2 years, and the Midwest is a new relationship. So prior to that, there wasn't, and there was still a difference between what we were getting from the Bank of Milton and what we were getting from LGIP, but it wasn't as significant as it's become over the last 2 years, which is part of why we dug into that.
so there will be a plan over the next 5 months to, maybe 5 months from now, come back and tell us what the other opportunities would be.
Sure, as we get updates from the Bank of Milton too on how this rate might change, I'm sure many of us are familiar that several years ago, not that long ago frankly, CD rates were over 5%, approaching 6%. And right now they're in the high 3s. That could change in 5 months, it could change a year from now. Either way, I would prefer this over the 0.5% we've been getting, at least right now.
Absolutely, I mean, yeah, you see a lot of advertisements, so again, being in finance world, there's better rates even than that. So fair enough on the relationship side, but 5 months from now, if there's another bank offering 5%, it's one of those like, will they compete with a different bank? And that's a good decision, but I'm just saying there are better rates for the ones at 5% out there right now.
That's right.
I'll go ahead and move to change make a motion to move to change the OPEB account structure from an interest-bearing checking account to a 5-month CD structure as presented.
I'll second.
All right. Thank you, Annette. We're going to get John's motion and seconded by Annette to change the OPEB account structure from interest-bearing checking to a 5-month CD, as Ross outlined for us. Does anyone else have questions on that motion? And all in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That clearly passes. All right, Mr. Ross, move on to F, your budget calendar.
Yes, this is an informational item that we revisit this time every year. What you have on Board Docs and on the screen right now is a highlight of the major dates for our budget development for, believe it or not, the 25-26 school year. We start a lot of that information right after we approved last year's budget in the fall, as you know, but now that we're in January and actually almost into March already, some of these dates have come and gone. We are looking at our staffing projections and have been since the holidays. And some other dates on here to highlight is our second Friday pupil count on January 10th. Gives us one of our better indicators of what enrollment is doing not only in the current year, but what it could be for next year based on our outreaches to families. Tonight, we're actually talking about our capital maintenance project plans, which we talked about a few items ago. In March, we're going to finalize our preliminary staffing plan, and Chris is going to be working with principals to get all ER forms to get our recommendations ready for the June preliminary budget, as well as our hiring season. In April, we're going to have due dates, internal due dates for all of our budget managers to have all of our budgetary spreadsheets due to district office. And in June, we'll be coming back to the board at our second meeting to discuss and approve our preliminary budget. In the summer, we'll go through the final closeout details for the 24-25 school year, including our final budget revisions for the current year. And at the end of August, we'll have our budget hearing and annual meeting, which will preview our budget to date for the 25-26 school year. In September, 2 major dates. Our third Friday people count is the last piece of information we wait for before we get ready for the October activities. And at the end of September, as per our most recent change, we will be bringing our final staffing plan to the board for approval, which we will then put into the fall budget in October. At the end of October, we're going to be presenting and approving the original budget for the 25-26 school year and certifying the tax levy. And then in January, we get the audited financial statements to the board, which we had at our second meeting this past January. Any questions
Any questions for Ross on the timeline ahead of us? All right, one last piece, as you can tell, a busy agenda for finance, but Ross, as our business manager, and Rich, to some degree, also supervise and oversee requests like the one that John outlined here. So I'm going to give Ross the chance to kind of highlight what's being asked here, and then we can fill in the details that folks need.
So we have a request on Shrine Road, 4425 Shrine Road. As John indicated at the beginning, we have a property on the west side of Shrine Road that is currently in the Whitewater School District. They have petitioned the school district of Whitewater and the school district of Milton to alter the district boundaries to essentially draw a box around their property, which would put their portion of the property, I don't know if you have the map available, Chelsea, it would put their property into our school district, which would be different than all the neighbors on that road. This came rather suddenly, I have to admit, and we've been putting together information. This is as late as the Friday before last. But the petition is also included in board docs from the McQuillan family. And we had a good discussion at the Finance Committee last Monday. And I believe the consensus was to recommend the petition, to approve the petition as presented. Also, as John mentioned, it makes a large difference that both districts have to vote on this. It would require an approval of the petition by both districts to go through. And I know that, Rich, you might have some additional comments or history on this topic as well.
Yeah, this is an agenda item that had come 2 years ago to the board on 2 different properties, including one of the two, including the one that is listed for this meeting. And at that time, our district did approve both of those requests, and Whitewater School District denied both requests. So the properties didn't move from Whitewater School District to this one. There is a state law that if a request is denied, it can't be brought back until 2 years have passed. So those 2 years have passed, and the family is bringing that request again to us and to Whitewater. I believe Whitewater School District is meeting tonight to determine their side of approval or denial.
Could you bring the map up again? Ross, would you be able to show what, it would cut?
Sure, I mean, it's,
I see you're saying it would go square around it?
yes, it might be a little hard to see, but this faint line right here is Shrine Road. And it goes straight up, actually halfway up the map there, it follows it directly on Shrine Road.
Okay.
When I looked at the map in a more zoomed out view, this is essentially a subdivision for the town of Johnstown. And a lot of the properties you see in this area are in the Whitewater School District, and north of, which I believe is that A, excuse me, right, this one right here.
That's Six Corners Road.
Six Corners, thank you. There's no houses up in that area, Shrine Road. There is a subdivision up in that black box in the upper left there, but this division down here is specifically the town of Johnstown. So if you could scroll back down, Chelsea, what this would be asking us to do, and I apologize for those who can't see my pointing, but the box would be drawn around the property, and then this would be part of the Milton School District.
So the black line that's going up through the numbers, those numbers are all Whitewater School District right now?
Correct.
Yes.
Those
Even
are the block
lines
numbers.
on there.
Think about it this way, their
Either
house
side of the
faces
road.
Shrine Road and the district boundary goes behind their house.
Correct.
Until it gets north and then it jumps back on the road.
Correct.
So that's the odd little jog that it has there.
Okay. So everybody else in that road would still be white water except for that one property.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts from board members on this topic? Otherwise, this is an action item. Joe?
Rich, do you want to share the cost the district would have by making this change?
Yeah, a couple
lack of
things
cost
that
for-
a couple things that were talked about at the finance committee were what approving that change would bring into the district, and what it would bring into to our district would be additional property, which would take our overall tax base and spread it out a little bit further, but it would be just one additional property. They also talked about transportation. And the transportation is an important part. We don't currently have any routes that go down Shrine Road, down North Shrine Road as listed here. So if this property was included in our school district, we would need to route a bus through there to pick up the students that live there, students that live there. And we estimate that it would add about 15 minutes to our current bus route that goes into that area.
Do you know where the nearest house is? Because you said north of up there's no houses.
No, correct. Not on that, where it jogs to the right, not up there currently. There's farmland, but there's not currently houses there now.
So would the bus route have to go an extra 15 minutes past where at the last pickup is?
Right, so, okay, I'm gonna share that real quick. Over here, you can see the nearest north-south road to this area. In order to come over to Shrine Road specifically, because this is a north-south road and the only other road it intersects is right along here, they would have to do an entire county block, which is about 1.5 to 3 miles long. So if they're making the entire trip around that, because there's no way to cut back and the roads are too narrow for a bus to turn around, it would add roughly 15 minutes to the routes we have established now for those in that area to come back to us.
If I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago, we did have an established route on that road, correct?
I was not here.
I think that we had one.
I can say that historically, we've had buses on Shrine Road. I mean, that's the edge of the district, if you will.
Right.
I think definitely 2 years ago, we had routes that ran, or a route that ran closer than what we have currently. And that can change from year to year depending on what school age children are in the homes that are in our district in that area. And then our routes get updated every year based on that.
Rich or Ross, can you speak to, I think it's an important piece of the puzzle here. This family open enrolls into Milton right now. Is that true?
Correct.
So these kids are in our district, but via open enrollment. And the property they have suggested has a value of 17,000. Obviously, that's a blank piece of ground.
Right.
So that to become someone's address, they would have to live on it eventually, or?
Right, all I have is the information on the petition, and they do list the value of the property as about $17,000. I can gather they have intention to build again on that land, but I can't speak to the details of it.
Okay. I didn't know if they'd shared that as a potential path or a plan or anything.
Because the petition originated in the school district of Whitewater, we are the recipient of their petition, so I know little beyond what was shared with us.
A copy of the petition is included in board docs.
So what would be the cost benefit of the additional tax base of 17,000 versus the additional cost of busing?
So it's unlikely to create an additional bus route. It would be a time issue, as we indicated. As far as an adjustment to the tax base, would largely be negligible to our overall tax base.
Did you get it from Mrs.
I did not.
Apparently I'm the only one.
Like recently?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know what the protocol is. It says that she is sending it to me and would like it read Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, I don't know if we can do that.
I don't either.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, you read an email from someone earlier. What's the difference?
Well, expressly asked to be part of public comment.
I mean, could she paraphrase it? I mean, she's
Yeah, I guess.
summarize.
I mean, hearing from them can't hurt, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, I can, sure it is. So it says, I want to write to hopefully answer any questions you may have about the petition to move school boundaries. My husband and I live on East County Road A with our 4 children. Our oldest started at middle school 2 years ago. Our other 3 children attend St. William's Catholic School in Janesville. Our kids will each attend St. William's until they finish 6th grade, and then they will start 7th grade at Milton Middle School. We found that Milton would be a better fit for a family, even though we are in the Whitewater School District. At this time, my husband drives our oldest to Milton High School every morning, and we pay for a bus seat so that he can take the Milton bus after school. He gets dropped off by the Milton school bus on a corner in a subdivision near Harmony Elementary School, 15 minutes away from our house. I leave work at 3 o'clock in order to be there to pick him up at 3:15. This is what we are currently in the process of building a new home 2 miles down the road from our current home on 5 acres that we have owned for 20 years on North Shrine Road. My husband grew up on North Shrine Road on his family farm. The house will be done sometime in September of this year. The crazy thing about our land is that it lies in both the Whitewater and Milton School District. The new house lies in the Milton School District portion. We are asking for our other parcel of land to be attached to the Milton School District so that our kids may be picked up and dropped off at our house by the Milton school buses. The reason we are asking for this is because the Milton buses literally drive down North Shrine Road to start their run. So that's basically it.
That sounds different than what we thought.
The conversation with the bus company was that we don't have buses that go down Shrine Road. There are not any pickups there, and our buses don't go through. They may see other buses that drive past, but they're not our buses.
Jen, did I hear you say that the new house is being built in the Milton School District?
That's correct. So that's, obviously that kind of triggered it when someone said, well,
Yes.
they can't live on their $17,000 lot.
Yeah.
It's barely not, but they
So
are building.
Sort of begs the question for me, why do we want to annex this piece? Why would they want to annex this piece if the new house is already going to be in the district?
It would still be a Shrine Road address. They are technically correct that the borderline bisects their property, and they'd be essentially, presumably, building this house on the back lot of that property.
So
But as such, they're our resident then.
that would
I
just-
can't answer that.
It is dependent on what the address is for that lot. If it's a deep lot, but the address of the lot and it is in Whitewater School District, I'm not certain how that would be related.
That's tricky.
Yeah.
Because obviously it'll be well more than 17,000 for one district or the other. I mean,
When the house is constructed.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
the house is going to be a significant piece of, tax base.
But are we really, as a board, going to approve a petition so that we can bus the children to the school? It's kind of what I heard.
That would be an effect of the change, yes. If that box were drawn, as I so crudely drew on the screen, then it would be a resident student, and we would have to provide transportation to their location, or near to it. We would do a house pickup, but yes, near their location, yes.
When we're saying the nearest Milton current house is 15 minutes from there.
No, I'm sorry. The road directly west of that, the north-south road, is still within our district. My discussions with Go Redways, we have a route that goes on that road currently. To extend the current school year route, presumably next school year's route, we would have to go around and down, up or down Shrine Road to accommodate that change.
So if we were to consider other families in the district who ride that route, so their children the pickup in there. They would be on the bus for another 15 minutes
Potentially, yes.
on top of the route they already have to accommodate that one property.
I guess I'm really puzzled by the house potentially being in our district.
I know, I've read it 3 or 4 times now, just sitting here, so I can read it again. So it says, we are currently in the process of building a new home 2 miles down the road from our current home on 5 acres that we have owned for 20 years on North Shrine Road. The house will be done sometime in September of this year. The crazy thing about our land on North Shrine Road is that it lies in both the Whitewater and Milton School District. The new house lies in the Milton School District portion. We are asking for our other parcel of land to be attached to the Milton School District so that our kids may be picked up and dropped off at our house. So I have a feeling it's how they're configuring.
So again, referring to the map, they would be building the house on the west side of the current boundary line, which is still attached to the property, but I'm guessing based on that comment, the property extends far west of that even.
But they say in her email, she said it's 2 miles down the road is where they're building?
Yes.
Is that what I heard you say?
I believe she's referring to the house that came.
From County A where they currently live, I think
Yes.
is what that references.
2 miles down the road from our current home.
It should be south.
South.
So it's down
Yeah,
here, and
Yeah.
this is 2 miles from
Right.
Correct.
right.
your location.
But the house is gonna be done in September.
Yes.
The house is gonna be in the middle school.
Yes.
Mind you, whatever we do is subject to what Whitewater decides. I mean, if we welcome them with open arms and pass this unanimously and Whitewater declines, it's a dead issue.
At the committee meeting, it was mentioned that we shouldn't set a precedence by doing this, but I also think we need to look at these case by case. It did pass 2 years ago. I guess I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the petition to alter school district boundaries brought to the board by Paul and Katie McClellan, requesting to detach 4425 North Shrine Road, Whitewater, Wisconsin, from the Whitewater Unified School District and attach it to the Milton School District.
I'll second the motion. So John's motion will be seconded by me. And he just heard him read it, so I don't have to reread it. Does anyone have questions?
Is this a committee recommendation or an administration recommendation?
This was a committee recommendation.
Anyone else have a question? All right, I will call the question. I'll reread the motion quickly. Motion to approve, or the motion is to approve the petition to alter school district boundaries brought to the board by Paul and Katie McQuillan to detach 4425 North Shrine Road, Whitewater from the Whitewater Unified School District and attach it to the Milton School District. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 Yes, that's myself. And opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
I declare that motion passed.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ross. That concludes a lengthy Finance Committee agenda. Thank you, John. Okay, new business. We'll drive into the policy world. And A is discussion and possible action, or I'm sorry, possible approval, adoption of the second reading of Neola policy updates. Rick?
Well, thanks, Joe. This is just a list of the policies that we had spoken about at our last meeting. If there are no changes, or I'm sorry, no questions or discussion, we can go ahead and move to approve and adopt the policy updates as presented. That's my motion.
Yeah, sorry, Rick, I'm waiting for a second.
Sorry.
Second.
Okay, Rick's motion is seconded by Jennifer to approve and adopt the policy updates as presented. Now, questions from anyone? And all in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those clearly pass. And B for new business is a discussion and possible action on the Apple lease for 2025 to 2029. And Rich is going to give us a bit of the highlights.
Yeah, there is a memo that is included. Before we dive into any questions or thoughts on the memo, at the February 10th board meeting, the board denied the administration's recommendation on moving to Chromebooks at Milton High School without any board action on a device to change to. We prepared lease terms for renewing the same devices that we currently have in place, which are iPads through 8th grade and then MacBooks for grades 9 through 12. In the memo, it has information on the number of items and the cost of those lease items. And the number of items are the same number of devices from our last refresh, which was in 2020. Was the last time that we refreshed. So any questions or thoughts from the board?
One question. Well, so the MacBooks are going from the MacBook Air M1 to the Air M2. So will all the MacBooks be collected from the high school students and all reissued new ones? Is that how it works?
Do you want to address that, Neil? The answer, yes.
Okay.
In general, I don't know.
In general.
More to it than that.
Oh yeah, it made it sound really easy. Just like my magic wand can like pull them all in. But, okay.
Our tech department is really efficient, and they've done this a few times before, and they'll set up a good process for both collection and distribution of the new devices.
And then how does, is everything, and maybe it's a question for Neil, so to kind of address public comment. So my assumption is everything is kept in the cloud that relates to personal and PII, any personal information for the students. So do the Macs have to be wiped, or as long as they're not locked into? Or Rich, if you really interested.
Neil can answer the
Okay.
technical questions.
Thank you. So obviously when a student turns in, you say their MacBook, if they're not logged in, is their personal information saved, their emails or anything that they have on there saved to the actual device? Or is it just saved to their cloud via their login?
It would be both. Most of it's in the cloud, but they do create and store documents locally. In the past, we've made it part of our agreement with the buyback vendor to erase the devices before they get sold.
Okay. So that's written into their agreement that they'll wipe the machines. Okay. But there's really not much PII from like personal information that's not school related. Unless they save their passwords for their.
Maybe you got a kid working at McDonald's and downloaded their W-2. Like you never know what could be on there, so we make sure that they will get this.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Neil, I just have one quick question. Is the MacBook Pro with touch from 2021 lease, is that then the equivalent of this media MacBook Pro?
I'm sorry.
There are two different, so we're seeing the expense of a MacBook Pro with
Oh, sure.
touch.
Yeah.
And in 2021, and now we're seeing a Red Hawk Media MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
And there's only one of them. So is that the same? Are we comparing apples to apples,
Yes,
so to speak?
We
No pun
are.
intended.
There was one, the MacBook Pro with touch is the same thing as the Red Hawk Media MacBook Pro. It's a one-for-one replacement. Garrett Quant is our digital media teacher. We replaced his lab off lease, off cycle last year.
Okay.
This represents the last piece of the equation for him, which is a MacBook Pro that facilitates streaming and video editing for him. The other MacBook Pros on here are 8 identical ones. It's just one's priced in a 5-pack and one's priced for 3 individuals. And that'll serve the needs for the tech department.
That was my next question. Perfect.
For communications and for, digital media.
Okay.
I got a question on the number of MacBook Air M2s. Rich, I did get your email, but I still needed some clarification. 2 weeks ago, we had talked about looking at Chromebooks, and in that scenario, we needed to get 800 MacBook Airs, 400 for staff and 400 for extras and loaners and cards and stuff. Now that we're where we're at, if the students are getting MacBook Airs, do we still need 400 extra? I just feel like we had 400 extra because we're having Chromebooks. Why do we still have 400 extra now that everybody's got MacBooks?
I'm not sure where the 400 extra comes from, but the 1870 that we bought 4 years ago have served us right up until now, and we have used every last one of them. It allows us to give new ones to freshmen as they come in instead of digging up old ones from seniors, so we do some rotating of them. We do lose some kids just lose them. We also have damage beyond repair. So our number dwindles from 1870. If we plan to only use them for 2 years, we could probably reduce that number by maybe 50. But since we plan to run these a full 4 years, we're gonna need it.
So do you see where I'm saying the 400 extras? That was 2 weeks ago, if we had Chromebooks, it was 400. 400 for staff, 320 cards, and 80 loaners. That's what was proposed. That's if the kids had Chromebooks.
Yeah.
So I'm just surprised that we still need the 400 extra now that the kids have MacBooks.
So we would flip, if in the Chromebook scenario, the extra 100 went into cards. In the MacBook scenario, the extra 100 go into our loaner fleet. That kind of floats us while they're damaged and they're out for repair, they come back. So it's only about an extra 100 deployed as far as I can tell. And then whatever extra flex is built in there, I don't think it's a full 300. But
So with the Chromebook proposal, there was a need for more classroom cards. But with the MacBook proposal, there's not as much of a need, there's not a need for as many classroom cards, but there's a need for more loaners because we have every student with a MacBook with that proposal.
So, yeah, I think, John, the way the numbers break down, if I understand, maybe the difference is the 220 in the carts is district-wide.
Correct.
So we have, for testing and for all kinds of reasons, we have carts available throughout the district. Every building's got X number of carts. The 180 loaners, there's always an option to buy like Mac insurance on every device. It's relatively expensive. It's actually more affordable to buy X number of spares and have them hot and ready.
that's part of it, yeah.
Is one way to describe it. Then a bunch go to subs every day and different purposes. So there's kind of a flexible fleet always needed, and this is pretty traditional.
Yep.
Am I explaining that right?
I think that sounds good.
And then I think in the Chromebook scenario, there would have been 100 more on top of that. Is that right?
Yeah, we would have taken out the MacBook loaners for students, and we would have put them into a cart to provide to replace the missing applications.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Another question, if I may. So you mentioned a 4-year lease. We technically could shrink that. I mean, let's just say in a year, 2 years. These always have a value to liquidate if we went Chromebook route or refresh to a new unit. We don't have to lock into a 4-year term, correct?
Yeah, the way I've explained it before is a 4-year lease is not necessarily a 4-year commitment, because our history has been to short circuit that at year 2, 2.5, based on market, based on need, based on what Apple's doing with the products. So that'll continue to be evaluated. This last fleet we ran for 4 years, partially due to the pilot. This next fleet we would like to run for 4 years. That's ideal. That's the goal. It's the most efficient way to do it. It's the lowest cost per ownership, lowest cost of ownership per student per device. But that is not necessarily, you're correct in saying we're not locked into that. We are locked in because we signed a lease, but unless market changes drastically, then we can almost always say, nope, it's time when we sell and get out, when we start the new of whatever it is that's next.
Okay. You probably review that maybe year to year type thing, or see what the value is. Okay.
Yep.
On that topic, before we move on to other questions, either Neil or Ross, can you share if we sign that 4-year lease, but then we make a decision at some point prior to that to refresh, what that looks like then on the financial end? How do we finish out the payments for that 4-year lease?
So in essence, we have a 4 years of lease payments we need to address somehow. If we end the lease early or pivot sooner than the 4 years, we would use the equity at the time through whatever resale vehicle we have to not only pay off the lease, but reinvest that into the future lease. One of the things we evaluated most recently about that is when's the best time to do that? Do we want to address it sooner than later? But that is essentially how it would be done, is you would pay off the lease with the proceeds or the equity that you have at that time, and then start over.
So this year, to Rich's point, so this year, if we liquidate our current fleet, what happens with those funds? Does that go towards the first payment of the lease, or how?
Not at this point. Right now, we are looking at replacement cases, headphones, keyboards, iPad cases for the new fleet coming in. Those would be bought using the equity proceeds of the fleet we have now.
Okay. And one last question, if I may. You mentioned the insurance, is that Apple Care? Have we looked into that?
We have.
I talked to some districts that were for it and some were against it, so if we approve this lease tonight, are we still able to add Apple Care?
We are, but we would not recommend that at this time.
Right, okay. Okay. That's all I got.
And the one other thing that I want to make sure that the board is aware of, our admin team is making an assumption because the board didn't take action on a certain device. So we made an assumption that the lack of action at the last meeting meant that the preference of the board would be to move forward with refreshing what we have in place now. So if that's not what the board intended, this would be the time to let us know. But we need to, it's important to give our team the authority to move forward with a lease so that we can get devices ordered.
I move to approve the Apple quote 22133459902 in the amount of $2,448,317 beginning July 1st, 2025.
Second.
Okay, Tracy's motion, as she just indicated, is to approve the Apple quote in the amount that she enumerated, as seconded by John. Any other comments on the lease? On the motion, I'm sorry. I'm gonna offer my thoughts. Obviously, everybody that was here 2 weeks ago knows that I voted in favor of the Chromebooks. I really struggled with this motion and this direction based on the idea that our administration did not want this direction. All of the financial numbers favor Chromebook situation. The community member that shared their thoughts via the public comment tonight spoke to that issue. Our tech integrator in the district also spoke favoring the other path. I'm uncomfortable picking a 4-year path, and in as much as we talked about there are options in the middle, the way it looks to me, it will be a struggle at best to recoup enough equity out of the devices to pay the remainder of the lease. If some of the folks can speak to that, if that's a slam dunk that we can come out of this money ahead, if we pick the middle of the lease, I could be convinced, but I have yet to see that. I raised the question, if we do nothing, what that triggers, and there are obviously some pros and cons, and I don't know if anyone wanted to speak to that. I also posed the question of, are there shorter term commitments that we can make? And I think there are pros and cons to that too. So if the board supports this, I will support the board decision, but I am really, really struggling with telling our community that we're willing to put $500,000 into this against what our administration wanted. I think we have sent two bad messages with last meeting's vote and potentially with this one. And I will stop right there. Any other comments?
Joe, I agree with what you say, but unless there's some people who are gonna change their mind, I think this is our only option at this time. I mean, I hear what you're saying and I agree with you. But we have to do something, so it's not what I wanna do, but.
Well, to the degree that we have to do something, I don't know if one of the admin want to speak to that. I mean,
You had mentioned doing nothing, and I'm assuming that by that you mean not approving the lease terms that were brought tonight. And to me, what that would mean would be that we would keep the devices that we have right now for another year. And we would strongly recommend that we don't do that. There's more downside than upside to trying to get another year out of the current devices that we have.
I would like to comment, so just to highlight on the memo, the cost increase from the last lease payment is only $21,000 a year. So the financial impact is negligible from that year. If I'm not, please correct me if I'm not reading that right, but it's about a $21,000 difference year to year. The 621 versus the 612 versus the 590. So to me, that's negligible. On the public comment that I want to highlight, the comment, his concern was that iPads don't provide keyboards and Chromebooks do provide full featured software. I don't necessarily understand that, but what I'm seeing is I don't see that massive financial impact. I still agree with my comments from last meeting but I was just trying to highlight like what I was trying to see about the finance part. So I see a $21,000 difference from the last 4-year lease to this one. So it's not like it's a humongous change in costs annually. Am I correct, Ross? Am I reading that right?
It's a 3.65% increase. The total lease cost for 4 years is right in the memo. And it says this represents a 3.65 increase in total lease cost. So I mean that's the overall increase. So and as long as I just have the floor, I agree wholeheartedly with my decision that I also made 2 weeks ago, that I think this is a really bad move on our part. For all of the reasons that Joe mentioned, for the reasons that Rick mentioned, all the reasons that we talked about 2 weeks ago. This is not a good financial decision for the district at all. And I also think we sent a terrible message to our administrators and our leaders that's basically said, no, we don't agree with the decision and the work that you put into all of the piloting.
So I'll comment on that real quick. And first of all, I appreciate everyone's opinion, and I want to make sure I say this. I do appreciate the work the administrators put in and everybody else put in. And I can only speak for myself, but I guess I'm a little saddened to hear that we're going to, we have a public comment that we never comment on, and we're going to listen to one voice when I've asked repeatedly to listen to several voices. What we should do, and right or wrong, is we should listen to our public and talk to them. And it doesn't mean that we say you get the vote. It means we take input and we harvest them. We harvest input to make the transition, whatever that is, better. And we didn't do that. We didn't talk to our community. We got one person in the community that said, I don't think it's a good idea, and now we're valuing that. And we don't want to talk to our students because we're afraid of the bias that they might offer, because of course they don't want to change. But they might be able to help us understand why they don't want to change and help us make that transition so we can go to it. And I don't understand why we wouldn't talk to our students because we're afraid that they're biased, but we'll listen to a tech director who runs a Chromebook district who of course has bias. And I don't mean anything negative by it. I actually value what James has to say and want to hear more. So for me, it's not a question of not respecting our administrators. It's a question of, I believe firmly, if you read the philosophy of the board, policy of bylaw 1, 2, 3, 4, I think it's 1, 2, 3, it clearly states that we're supposed to have two-way communication on important decisions with our community. And clearly, we've all identified this is an important issue. We're split on it. I'm happy to revisit the topic, but we have to have communication with everyone. We're making data-driven decisions off of not all of the data. And I can't do that. That's my opinion.
Just to clarify, I think if you were hearing my comments about the financial advantage, I was comparing the potential Chromebook pivot to this Apple lease. That's where the big difference is.
So was I.
I want to just add one more thing too. We're not talking about picking a device from day one. We're not starting with Chromebooks or MacBooks. That's a different discussion. We're talking about moving from MacBooks to Chromebooks, and there's definitely a feature-rich differential there. And that's an important discussion. And I feel like there's more to be had there. I really do. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm negative Chromebook, because I am not. But I do think that transition is going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of understanding. And before I do that, I want to hear from everybody. I want to hear from the whole community, not just one person. It could go the other way. So we should have 100 people here saying, "Great job, guys! Good job. We're glad you didn't do it, or we're glad you did." Got one voice.
Just one other thing I wanted to add regarding hearing from the community. In the past 2 weeks, I've heard from multiple staff across all levels of this district, and they're disappointed in the decision that this board made. The people I talked to, they gave me the impression that they think that the board doesn't care about the staff. So I think it's important that everyone hears that.
And I'll state that is not the truth for this person.
It's the people I talk to.
I understand, but I want the public to say it.
Yeah.
That's not how I feel.
I would also like the public to say that I truly think about the staff and the administration when I made the decision. I also spent about 20 to 25 hours of my own personal time researching that topic, so it is not something I came into the meeting with lightly. I received my own feedback, and again, we can possibly speak to different folks. So again, I don't think it's fair to blame any one member or members of the board. We are here, we do our research, we take the time to consider all of the information presented. There's no disrespect meant to any person, any member of any team, but sometimes we're just going to differ. And I think that's why we have open communication. We work well as a board, but we're not always going to be on the same page, and that's why there's 7 of us and not just one of us. So I do have a motion. I think I made the motion.
Anyone else's comments? Then I will call the question. We'll restate Tracy's motion, and that is to approve Apple quote 221-334-5902 in the amount of $2,448,317, beginning July 1st, 2025. Just check. Annette, are you still able to hear everything?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will roll call vote this, and I'm going to start to my left this time, even though everybody's in different seats. I'm going to go to Jennifer.
No.
Rick?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Joe is a no. Tracy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
Is a yes. That's 5-2. The motion passes. Thank you, everyone. All right, that is the end of new business. A on miscellaneous is our staffing report.
I'll move to approve the staffing report as presented.
Second.
Rick's motion is seconded by Tracy to approve our staffing report as it is presented. Questions from anyone? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That clearly passes. Gifts and donations are letter B.
I'll move to approve the gifts and donations with gratitude.
I'll second that.
That is Tracy's motion seconded by Rick And to approve our gifts with gratitude, it bears mention that there is a large donation on there that we are extremely grateful for from Dave's Flowers and Yamaha Motorsports. Just wanted to make note of that as a big one. So thank you to them and to everyone. All in favor of approval of the gifts and donations, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign, and that clearly passes also. Meeting dates, Mr. Dahman.
Our next regularly scheduled board meeting is on Monday, March 10th, 2 weeks from tonight at 6:30 PM. I do want to note that that's our only board meeting in March because we have spring break at the end of the month. So our next meeting after that will be the first board meeting in April. We have an HR committee meeting, and I think that Chelsea heard back from all of the HR committee members that they are available a week from tonight at 6:30 PM. Is that, from the HR committee, is that correct, that works for the three of you?
Tracy?
Yep.
All right. And then coming up on March 12th is the 2025 Day at the Capitol that the State School Board Association sponsors. We've heard from Annette that she's planning to attend, and I'm planning to attend that. It's an opportunity for board members and administrators from across the state to have conversation with area legislators about items that are important with relating to public education.
All right, good on dates? All right, we have a proposed executive session here, which I will do momentarily. We are not planning to return to executive session or to open session for any action. So, having said that, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85 Sub 1 and Sub C and Statute 19.82 Sub 1, which is considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and it is around employee compensation.
Second.
Thank you. Rick's motion is seconded by John to go into exec. We will roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Joe is yes. Ed?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
And Jennifer?
Yes.
And Annette?
Yes.
And we are in unanimous agreement. We are in executive session. Thank you for joining us, everyone.